We live in a time where masculinity is shamed and men don't know what it means to be a man. As a pastor and counselor, I've spent the better part of my life equipping and training others. My goal with this show is to translate my hard-earned experience into tools and tactics to help you become stronger as a man. This is the BraveCo podcast. I'm your host, Jason Bellet. All right, BraveCo men, I am back this week with a great friend of mine, Fab. And, well, I guess I should say Fab. Trey calls you Fab.
He's the only one.
I hate Trey
and
for
Seth
that.
calls me Fob.
Does he?
Yeah.
Trey's like the devil sometimes that comes in and puts these bad thoughts in your mind. And I hope he listens to this because he knows what I'm talking about.
He'll never change.
No. Fab, you've just been such a good friend, and we've ran together for quite a long time now. And actually we just finished a shooting school in Oregon together, long range shooting school, which was a lot of work and super fun.
I don't know how you guys did it. That was a lot of work. Because I mean, the first shooting school, well, the first shooting school that I went on was a ton of work. This year, the grounds and everything, the animals and the targets that you made were unbelievable.
They were amazing. Yeah, they were a lot of work. For those of you that don't know, every year we put on some VIP events just for guys who want to come. And like we have another one in October, 4th through 8th in Alabama. It's our BraveCo experience. We'll do high ropes course and long range shooting and pistols. This one we did out in Oregon, in Monument, Oregon, and just taking guys out, shooting long range, teaching them how to execute a perfect shot, giving them confidence. But it was hot. It was
so hot.
3:45 a.m. wake ups.
Oh my goodness.
It was brutal, man. But there's nothing like getting a whole bunch of guys together and just spending a week together, like going for it.
It was special. I mean, last year, I think that was a huge turning point in my life, Dan. I think it was for a lot of the people on the shooting school. And this year was just a deepening of that.
Yeah, it's true. We're going to get into that in a little while. But before we dive into that, I want people to really get to know you because you're such an interesting man. Like you're a guy that has done so much in your life. When I first met you, how long have you been here?
11 years.
Okay.
Our kids were playing soccer on the same team.
Yeah. So I met you like the first year you were here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you started to tell me about, like, just in soccer, we'd cheer our kids on, but then I started asking about your life, and you're like, yeah, I'm an actor, and I used to act in Tomb Raider.
Yeah.
Bro, Laura Croft.
Yeah, baby.
Let's go, man.
It's a throwback.
And a bunch of other stuff. But so you're just such an interesting guy. I want the guys to get to know you, and let's dive into your story a little bit. Where are you from originally? And how did you come to know God and end up at Bethel?
Yeah. So my parents moved to the UK when they were quite young. My dad moved when he was 18. My mum was 6 from the south of Italy. So I was born in the UK, but I'm fully Italian passport.
Are you 100% Italian?
100% Italian.
No way.
Mm-hmm. 100% Italian, but with a British accent. So, so when people go, you're English, I go, I'm not, I'm Italian.
Yeah.
But it's confusing for people. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It is.
So
you are very confusing for people.
Thank you, dude. I appreciate that. So they moved there, and then I grew up in a very kind of Italian culture, but my parents wanted to kind of, acclimate me to the English culture as well. And my dad was a hairdresser. My mum was an administrator. And my dad came from a family of 10 from the south of Italy. So no money, poverty. He lived with his granddad because these houses were tiny. And he moved to the UK, and he was like a man of style, just a man of style, had a very successful business. And he was the first person that taught me what art really was.
Wow.
Because he would make me at 10 years old, go to the shop, learn a sweep. He wouldn't let me cut hair until I learned how to sweep, until I keep the stations clean. So he taught me a work ethic.
That's amazing.
My dad taught me work ethic.
Wow.
From such a young age, he didn't give me the option to go, you can't do that. You're coming with me, whether you like it or not. You need to learn a trade. And I realized that being an artist isn't just being some kind of flighty, airy fairy. It requires work. And he taught me the steps of how to become what art was. He taught me what art was.
That's amazing. Now, I should have said this in the beginning, but you're the director of Bethel Conservatory of the Arts.
Correct.
So,
Yeah.
Sorry that I missed that, but that's a lot of what you do now.
Yeah.
You direct and teach and equip people to do art, essentially act.
Yeah. I mean, essentially to send creative missionaries out into the industry I want to see culture changed. I want to see content changed to reflect kingdom values, family values. We've seen the degeneration of society because, as you talk about a lot, fatherlessness. So how can we change that? So that is a vision I've had that we can get into later, but that's such a heart of mine to see that happen.
So you grew up working in your dad's barbershop, sweeping floors.
Yep. Sweeping floors, and basically he would make me watch every single haircut.
Hey.
And he finessed everything. Like, he was a master craftsman. So I would just understand what detail was. And even though I hated it, because all I wanted to do, when I was 13, he took me to a movie called Big with Tom Hanks.
Yes.
And that was the turning point for me, where I was like, I knew that I wanted to do that for the rest of my life.
Act.
I just wanted to act. I wanted to tell stories. And my dad would always say no. I mean, he's like, listen, dude, you know, this acting is a precarious industry. He didn't know anything about it. How could he?
Yeah.
He's from the south of Italy. He's a barber. He had his own business in Italy. He had his own business in the UK. So what he would do is he'd try and create opportunities for me with his clients, because they were high-level clients. But he didn't have many like agents or managers. We were in Sheffield, 2 hours north of London in the UK. And wherever he could expose me, he would. But what he said to me, he said, son, listen, if you want to be an actor, then figure it out yourself. So I was like, I don't know how to do that. So he says, look in the yellow pages for an acting teacher. So I literally, the yellow pages, you have to cut down half the Amazon rainforest to actually.
Well, that was way before the internet.
Way before the internet. That's saying how old I am. So I literally looked through acting teacher. The first one I came to, I called. I said, listen, have you got any availability? I was 13 at the time, said yes. So my dad said, okay, I'll pay for acting classes. And that was my intro into acting.
No way.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah, because he didn't know what to do, but I guess at least he was encouraging me to see if I had enough skin in the game to actually go after something. Because at 13, how many people know what they want to do?
Well, listen, he did way better than I did. So when I was a single dad, my son Elijah was 9, and he's like really ambitious, So he would come up to me and be like, Dad, I want to write a book. I want to be an author. I'm like, no, that's cool, son. And he's like, no, like right now. And I'm like, well, it's a lot of work. And I was like so stressed out, like single dad, just trying to run life. And he'd be like, no, I want to write a book like right now, Dad. And I was like, well, son, it takes a decent amount and you really need to have something to say. And he'd be like, I have something to say. And I'm like, and then he would say, well, you and Papa wrote a book.
Right, exactly. Many books, right?
Yeah. But then I remember one day, right, I'm doing the laundry downstairs like 7 a.m. I'm not a real morning guy. And he pops out into the laundry room. He goes, Dad, I need an agent. And I said, you what, son? He said, I need an agent. I said, an agent for what? He said, I want to be an actor.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I want to be an actor. And I was like, oh man, yeah, we'll talk about that later. And he's like, Dad, I want to be an actor. And I was like, all right, yeah, no, we'll talk about that later. But I lived with 6 roommates. Mm-hmm. Francesco Sedelli was one of them.
Amazing, man.
Yeah. So Frankie was my longest standing roommate that I had. And dude, these guys would just, like Francesco was into the arts, Mm-hmm. So my kids would hang out with him and be like, I want to be an artist. And then they would hang out with Kyle and be like, oh, I want to start a business and all this stuff. So I got overwhelmed by the idea of like, how am I going to get my son into acting? We'll talk about it later. We never did.
Can I ask, was there a fear when Elijah said that?
I was already overwhelmed.
Yeah.
As a single dad. And I think the idea of that was before you and David were doing anything in the arts. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I think I was just so overwhelmed with trying to do daily life
Yeah.
that it felt impossible to even figure out how to do that.
Yeah.
Now my reaction would be way different.
Yeah.
If Edie or Liam,
Of course.
my littles, come to me and say, "Hey, I want to act," I'll be like, "Yeah, let me call Fab
Yeah.
and talk to him."
Well, do you know what? That's a normal reaction, because if you think about it, how many parents would be like overjoyed and over the moon
Yeah.
about saying, I want to go into the arts and entertainment industry?
Yeah.
Because especially as a believer,
Yeah.
you look at it and you go, that's going to devour me. That's going to,
Bro, there's not a lot of people in that industry that are thriving that you go, I want my kids to be like that.
right. I mean, how many role models do we have? It's getting better now.
Yeah.
It's getting a lot better now. I mean, I think there are, according to Hollywood Pro Network, there are like 10,000 active believers in the industry right now.
That's cool.
And obviously you can start seeing faith-based content is way, 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 way increasing. Sound of Freedom, Unplanned, all these movies. But I think, my dad had the same reaction that you had to Elijah. It's like, no, but I realized after a while what my dad was testing, that work ethic test, is he wanted to see how passionate I was, to see that it wasn't a fad, that if it was going to have any longevity to it, I would keep wanting to do it. And I realized the more he said no, the more I wanted it even more.
That's awesome.
I wanted it even more. And there was like a publication that came out every week called The Stage. In America, it's called The Backstage. And I would literally get this newspaper, and I would see all the conservatories in the back. And at 13, I would just call them in London. I would just keep hounding my dad, send me to London, send me to London, send me to London. Son, I'm not going to send you to London at 13 years old to an acting boarding school.
You would call them and just talk to them?
I would ask them to send me the prospectuses.
No way.
I would just call them.
Because you wanted to go to acting school.
I did, dude. I just saw what Tom Hanks did. I saw that movie of fantastical storytelling, and that's all I wanted to do. And I don't think I knew the Lord at the time. I had a small encounter with the Lord when I was about 10.
Were your parents saved?
We were Catholics.
Okay, yeah.
So my dad would go to Catholic church, and he'd make me go with him. And then there was a time when I didn't get up one morning, but then he went, and I went, I've got to go to church. So I remember at night just praying for all of my family and my grandparents.
Wow.
And one night I felt like I got lifted off the bed. I mean, this is not a theological statement whether I levitated or not, but I was like, I just felt light come in the room, and I experienced God, but I didn't know, I didn't have any verbiage for it. No verbiage. But so I would say at that point I'd experienced God. My dad had wanted to be a priest since he was about 4 years old. So he already had this kind of desire in him to know the Lord. And I think that translated to me.
Yeah.
That's
so rad.
Yeah. So yeah.
So how long did you meet with that like acting instructor?
Probably 2 or 3 years. And then I would do a few plays at school. And then I got into what we call like community theatre here at Amateur Dramatics in the UK. And I would just do that for a few years. When I was 13, I got involved in a cult.
No.
So I was involved in a cult for like 2.5 years.
What?
It was crazy.
What did that look like?
This guy claimed to be Jesus. And one of the guys that kind of introduced it to it was like a real womanizer and multimillionaire, and gave everything up because he said he'd found Jesus. So my dad saw him and he'd completely changed, not saying in a good way, but in a way that seemed attractive to anybody that was searching. And he says, I've met Jesus. And we go and see this guy who'd been a bit of a stoner. It sounds a bit like a sitcom, but he had plugs in his hair because he had a bit of a hair transplant. He lived in the projects. But when you're searching, I think your heart is open to anything that makes you feel known, seen, heard. It's a community, right? And I was in that for a couple of years until somebody was very concerned about my parents' marriage, concerned about us being involved in this cult. And he said, listen, that's not the real Jesus. He's not even a good false prophet. He wasn't even a good false prophet.
He's living in the projects.
He's living in the projects. He's got plugs. You know what I mean? Thin, straddly hair. Used to be in the music industry. And when I asked him, I said, how did you know you Jesus? He just said, well, I felt different at school. I was like, that's not a reason why you know you're Jesus. So anyway, I remember it's October 1990, October 15th. I sat at the side of my bed and I invited Jesus into my life.
Wow. And how do you, besides that person, had you heard about Jesus before?
I mean, yeah, through the Catholic Church,
Okay.
but I don't know if I knew where to put him or knew what a
Yeah.
personal relationship
Yeah.
with him was, you know.
That's wild.
So I sat down, said the prayer, the sinner's prayer, and then it wasn't really, I mean, for 3 months, I kept going in the cult, out of the cult. And it was on February the 14th, Valentine's Day of 1991.
Wow.
I went on a retreat with a youth group that I'd just been invited to, and I got filled with the Spirit.
Wow. No way.
Started speaking in tongues, fully understood what my relationship with Jesus was.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah.
What did your dad think?
He got saved pretty much straight after that.
Wow.
Both my parents came to know the Lord around about the same time because they'd seen the change and,
Yeah.
you know, they
That's
saw what it
wild.
was like to be when I was filled with the Spirit. I just, you know what it's like. You get saved and it's like the scales come off your eyes
Yeah.
and you realize I'm open to a completely different world.
That's incredible. So how did you end up getting into acting? Like there's a big jump between going and
Yeah.
practicing and actually doing stuff.
Doing stuff. So I started researching a lot of drama schools. And I think I was, so I went to university at 18 and I went and studied kind of law and business. And my dad didn't want to pay for me. So I had to work full time as a hairdresser and go to university. So not that he couldn't afford to, he just said he wasn't going to. So it was September when I started and I hated it. I just hated it. And I remember it was in December, I said, Dad, I just can't keep doing this. And he said, what do you want to do? I said, Dad, I've never changed what I wanted to do. I want to be an actor. And he said, all right, son, we'll get the chills. I'm going to support you.
Wow.
So I took the rest of the year off. But in that year, I got my first professional musical
Wow.
without training. I did a short movie and then I had a day off from filming and I went and auditioned for this drama school. And then I ended up getting in. And from there on, I just threw myself in hard work and focused on trying to become the best actor I could possibly be.
Wow. So you just found a open door in the industry and just followed it?
I found, yeah, I did. And I think, you know, when you get your parents' support, it means a lot, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like an endorsement.
Yeah, it's so true.
All right, son, it's like now 6 years have passed. You've never changed the record. And that shows my age again as well. And then when he supported me, I felt like that was a real endorsement from the Lord to go, this is what I want you to do. And that's really apart. I mean, I've had massive ups and downs in my career that we can talk about like any actor does, but it just made me come alive, dude. Knowing that you're in that place that you want to be. I loved my time at drama school. It wasn't a Christian drama school. I don't think they even existed at the time, but it was one of the top ones. And I just threw myself into training.
Wow. That's incredible. I know the feeling of having your dad get behind you and be like, you're in the right spot. When I went to the school of ministry, I was 20 years old and I went for 2 years, actually started at 19, graduated at when I was 20. And then right away said, I'm going to go fight fire. I had a good friend of mine who was like a crew boss and he called me and said, hey, come and lead my crew for me. And I was like, I don't know. I went and talked to my dad, you know, about joining the fire crew. And he was like, no, it's the wrong decision. And just because of the danger and you're gone quite a bit and I had young kids and I was only married a couple of years. And I just went back and I like prayed about it, you know, again. And I just felt like a yes. It was the first time in my life that I had kind of gone against what my dad had advised me to do. And it was like this big, massive decision. I ended up doing it. And I remember a year later, I talked to my dad every week on the phone just to get advice on how to lead men and stuff like that. It was a really cool time in my life. But like a year later, he said, hey, this was the best decision you've ever made.
Wow.
And it like did something in me,
course.
you know, I just built like that confidence. And, but to have him like behind me at that point was so big.
Right.
So man, I could imagine this dream that's in your heart from a child, having your dad go like, I'm all in with you. Massive push.
I mean, that's what we want, right?
Yeah.
Not that we always, yes, guys, kids try and seek approval from their parents, but it's when they get behind you and endorse you because they actually see the dreams that you have and they go, no, I'm going to get behind that, son. I'm going to not just get behind it with a yes, I'm going to get behind it with my resources.
Yeah.
I'm going to get behind it and go, okay, I've said no all this time. Here's my resources now.
Yeah.
And it cost him a fortune.
So how long did you go to school for?
I went to school for 3 years.
Okay. And then are you like getting, do they call it gigs?
Yeah, we get gigs. I mean, I looked
While you're in school?
I get any gigs while I was in school? I mean, typically for the first few years, you're not allowed.
Okay.
In my senior year, I wasn't actively looking because I was so focused on study. But when I left drama school, I left with an agent.
Wow.
I mean, he was a very abusive agent, so we can talk about that in a sec.
Bro.
But dude, it was weird. He was just amazing at selling.
Oh yeah.
And then when I actually got into the industry, I'll tell you a story. So I leave drama school. My first gig, I leave in July. I go on a trip to Nepal. I actually meet my wife at my graduation.
Wow.
So Claire, that entire year, my senior year at drama school, there was this guy who we met that my wife knew, and he tried to set me up. And I was like, dude, no disrespect. I don't need setting up. But he says, she's a crazy Christian and so are you. And I saw photographs of her and I thought, she's really cute. So the last day we could meet was at my graduation, and we went to a pub, and I was going to Nepal, and we met, and she said she knew at the time. We'd both split up with our previous partners. She knew at the time. I kind of didn't know. So I went on a missions trip to Nepal. And then when I got back, we just started, just text. There was no text at the time, phone, landlines. And
sending pigeons back and forth.
Exactly. Sending pigeons. Yeah, exactly. Pigeon mail. And we started dating in the October the 15th of 1997. And I got my first gig about 4 months out of school. Wow. And the thing was, her mum, she just found out her mum had got cancer again for the second time. I was on stage and I said, listen, I called my agent. I said, listen, I'm going to have to miss this show because my mother, what would be my mother-in-law is in the last stages of her life. And he went, I can't believe you'd ever consider not doing a show.
Wow.
I would expect you to miss the funeral, because if you were on stage, she would know that she was dying knowing that you're doing what you love. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. This guy was just like super abusive. One time he'd be great. So my introduction into acting was like, from a representation point of view, was like, gosh, are all agents like this? So I got my first gig. Then after that gig, he fired me.
Wow.
And then I just went on and just literally tried to find another agent, got another agent, and then just started booking work.
Is it hard to find an agent?
I mean, to find the right agent, yeah, it's not easy to find, but I went to a top school, so that made it easier. I'd cultivated a bit of a relationship with him, but I looked at acting as an art, but also as a business. So I went and studied musical theater as well, because I knew the costs were bigger. So I had more of an opportunity getting work in musical theater, because most of my background is more like theater, bits of TV and film, whether it's David is predominantly,
movies.
TV and a few movies. So I went down that road.
That's cool.
Okay,
so let's get into like, what was the best time you had in acting and what was the worst?
Oh, interesting. So I think the first gig that I got with who is an A-lister now was I got Romeo and Juliet and West Side Story with James McAvoy.
Wow.
He was playing Romeo, I was playing Mercutio, and then Bernardo, and
You're playing Juliet?
Yes, I was playing Juliet. So that was a real highlight for me, because I'm working with this actor who's on the up.
Yeah.
We had a changing room together, and I profed over him saying, you're going to be the next Ewan McGregor.
Wow.
And he ended up being, I think, way bigger than Ewan McGregor is right now. And I just learned what it was like to learn from this actor who was phenomenal.
Wow.
And that was a real, Tomb Raider 2 was another really high point. I think low point was this. I said to the Lord, I said, I just finished a gig, and I said, Lord, I never want to be out of work. And I saw this advert in a paper. It was a Christian publication. And it said, we're looking for people to open Christian radio stations. So I was like, that sounds cool. So I decided and prayed about it with Claire that we were going to open a Christian radio station. So whenever I do anything, though, it's never just small. It has to be huge. So we set up a Christian radio station. 6 months of research. It was to celebrate the millennium in 2000. And I didn't really know what I was doing, but we had a huge mission attached to it. We just blew everything out of the park. After that 6 months, I had a nervous breakdown.
Oh, no way.
And I realized I said I wanted to get into the industry to make God famous. And I realized he was famous enough without me. And it was more about my pride wanting to be known. I wanted to be validated like a Leonardo DiCaprio. I thought my looks would get me somewhere. My talent would get me somewhere. And it never took off to that level. But I think what the Lord was doing was having to stop me in my pride.
Yeah.
And I was probably, very much like you know, I know your arms didn't function for a year, but I don't think I could get out of bed for about a year.
Wow.
It was a really, really rough time. Depression. I remember there was one point where I think we were pregnant with our first. And I said to my wife, I said, I'll see you, babe. I'll see you later. And I remember driving to the coast and going to, and I'd never really had suicidal thoughts up until that point. I went to this part of the beach where the current was really bad. And I just sat on the beach and I was looking at the swell. I was contemplating walking in. And I said, Lord, if you're really there, I just need something. And I don't know what it was, but I turned around and walked away.
Mm.
And he gave me 3 words in my daily devotions. He said, listen, persevere. What's in a name? And this is your year. Over the 3 days. And I was like, okay, persevere. That's good. I'm going to persevere. What's in a name? And I looked at my name and it means successful farmer or bean grower, which obviously bean grower is not a very nice name, but anyway, whatever.
It could be worse.
It could be worse.
You could be called Jacob.
Could be, yeah. But it's like seed, right?
Yeah.
Throw beans down, let it grow. And this is the year. And this was like a June or July. And I went, Lord, is it June to December? And we were living down south at the time, an hour outside of London, and we were struggling financially. You know, the radio station had taken its toll and gigs weren't coming in. So I decided to move back up north because we were having Bella and to work with my dad. And I felt like a failure.
Yeah.
I felt like the thing that I said I would never do, I ended up doing. But you know what it's like. You have to do what you have to do for your family. So December came around, nothing happened. I was like, Lord, so is it June to June? I moved back. And then it was a time where I was just depressed working at my dad's shop, hated it. And in the March, the Lord said, it's now. And I said, well, what do you mean it's now? I mean, I've not even got any auditions, bar me getting a movie audition.
Yeah. What's
What's going to happen? A couple of weeks would go past, my dad was away. I get a call from my agent and he went, a very, very big casting director would like to see you for a huge movie. Can you be down in London in the next 3 hours? And I was like, I'm 2 to 3 hours drive away, but I'll make it happen. So I had to shut the shop, drove down and started weeping. I go, Lord, is this it? So I get a call back 2 weeks later, the same thing again, shut the shop and I drive down and I meet now with the director, the producers.
Are they just talking to you or are you acting for them?
I'm putting myself on tape for them. Yeah.
Wow.
And then I end up booking the gig. And it's so funny how it was virtually a year to the date that I booked Tomb Raider 2,
Wow.
which was my first Hollywood movie. I'd done a bit of TV up to that point. But here's the deal. I'd had a huge encounter as well a couple of months before that. And when I went on set, you know, I was in Santorini for the first 3 weeks, was working out every day with Gerard Butler. I was, you know, talking about the Lord to Angelina Jolie. And for the first 3 weeks, I was so on fire.
Yeah.
I had a couple of months off before I had to go back for another 3 months in January. Dude, in that 2 months that I was away, so much entitlement got in.
Wow.
And then I went back on set and I was like, I know it's going to happen. I know it's going to happen. I know it's going to happen. Finish the movie. I get another movie that was nominated for Best British at the Raindance Film Festival, which is one of the tracks to go into the Oscars. And I go to LA for the premiere of Tomb Raider 2. And, you know, I meet some amazing people, but I'm in this entitlement thing knowing that it's going to happen. And then after that, everything just went quiet.
Wow.
everything went quiet. After a big movie and another movie, everything went super quiet. And I found myself faced with, even though I earned decent money on the movie, I was like, I don't have a pension, so what do I do? So I started investing in real estate. And I just threw myself into another area that I was good at, which was business. And I started building up a real estate portfolio, made a lot of money, but I didn't know how to steward it. I didn't know if I knew or anything at the time how to steward wealth. So I would buy real estate, buy fancy cars, and then 2008 hits.
Oh, geez.
And literally, I didn't know where my mortgage payments were going to come from because of the stewardship or lack thereof. And I said, Lord, if you give me the opportunity that I don't lose everything, I'll never make the same mistake again.
Wow.
So I don't know how it happened, but my mortgages got paid. And then I literally took a hiatus from acting and bought my dad's business on him and just became a hairdresser.
No way.
Mm-hmm.
It's so interesting. Like the Bible basically talks about there's two roads in life.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them, the rock falls on you and you get completely crushed.
Yeah.
And the other one, you fall on the rock.
Yeah.
And it just feels like no matter who you are in this life, one of the roads that you take is going to lead to one of these things. You either fall on the rock and humble yourself, right? And get broken, or you just get completely smashed and the Lord has to completely rebuild you. And it just like, golly, man, to hear that story about, what do you think actually brought in the entitlement? Was it just being around that culture? Was it your insecurity?
Yeah. I think it was an insecurity, not that I would have framed it as insecurity at the time, but I felt that I had in me what it was to make it.
Yeah.
And I thought there's no reason why I shouldn't make it.
Yeah.
So that entitlement was there going, oh, I got my first movie. God said this is the year. He came good on his word. So that must mean now that this is going to happen. But you know, with any entitlement, what's the root? It's pride.
Yeah.
It's pride. And God's like, I love you too much to let this happen. I don't think I would have been in a marriage.
Yeah.
I think I could have probably fallen multiple times. And I think it was his saving grace that stopped me from moving any further forward in my career, but he wastes nothing. So when I did real estate and when I nearly lost it all and then went into something that I said that I never wanted to do, I learned to serve the Lord in the mundane.
Yeah.
And I think what it did was getting into business taught me how to become a producer.
Wow.
Because he wastes nothing. So he taught me to understand the mechanics of finance, you know, and running a business.
How long did you do that for?
I ran that business for about five or six years. 5 or 6 years.
Were those good years or dark years?
A mixture.
Yeah.
A mixture. I think, listen, if you can learn to serve the Lord in the mundane and go, I choose to do this. I don't know. Hollywood is out there. And I know it's calling me, but I don't know how to get there anymore.
Yeah.
I feel like with each passing day, I'm going further and further and further back. And I remember living with that weight of a calling, but not being in it is really tough because you go, was it my desire?
Yeah.
Was it the Lord? But the point is, I couldn't ever admit that it was just me. I really felt something inside of me that it was from God.
Wow.
So I remember one day, it wasn't a great day. I was at my mom's house and I was like, listen, Lord, I need some clarity. So I fasted for like 30 days. I took a fast and I was like, this is going to be amazing. God's going to talk to me first day, revelation at the wazoo.
Totally.
And then it gets to 29 days and probably coming up to the close of my fast. And I see nothing, dude. Like it's empty. And I'm again going, Lord, I'm just trying to ask for like something to confirm this. So I decide to go for a walk around my mum's neighborhood and I'm nearly back home. And literally, as it's about to end the fast, I go into an open vision.
Really?
And the Lord shows me Hollywood. And it's stunning. It's full of color. I see the Hollywood sign. It's beautiful. And then within the same breath that I see its beauty, it shifts into like a dystopia, and everything becomes black and white. All the flowers that were once vibrant are now dead. And I start to see this forest around Hollywood, and all the trees are like dead and intertwined. And in the middle of the trees, I see a few people with like lanterns trying to navigate their way through this forest. And then the Lord takes me to an elevated view of this forest, and I see a graveyard in the middle. Mm. And it's surrounded by a wrought iron fence. And in the middle of the graveyard, there's one person with a lantern. And then at the opening of the graveyard, there's another person with a tribe of people behind him. And I said, Lord, who are the people with the lanterns in the forest? He said, they're believers that have maintained their light trying to navigate the system. And I said, Lord, who's the person in the middle? He said, it's David Oyelowo. And I went, who's David Oyelowo? So then I'll come to that. And I said, Lord, who is the person at the entrance of the graveyard? He said, it's you. And he says, when I take it, I'm going to take it all at once. So I was like, who's David Oyelowo? And then you realize David Oyelowo is becoming an A-lister now. Selma, you just look his IMDb up. He's in everything right now. Everything.
Wow.
I didn't know who he was, but he gave me his name. Heard his name. The funny thing was, when I was here doing Tomb Raider, promoting Tomb Raider, his face was all over Sunset Boulevard.
Wow.
in a show that he was doing called Spooks. I think it was called MI6 here. So I was like, I've got to tell this to David Oyelowo. I've got to tell him, how do I get in contact with David Oyelowo? I mean, this is virtually impossible, right? So I just sit with that.
You didn't know who that guy was before.
I didn't know who that guy was. I'd heard of his name.
Yeah.
Heard of his name. But I was still so far away from it. Like, I didn't know how to still move forward. I had an agent, but she wasn't very good.
Clearly
very good, right? So, yeah, I just started pursuing the Lord. And it was in 2011 where Claire and I started to feel a move in our spirit. We'd started to listen to Bethel. So a friend of mine had started to listen to Bethel worship, and he started to have this encounter with the Holy Spirit, and it would start manifesting and all this kind of stuff. I was an associate pastor at the time, and I remember being in a restaurant, and it was starting to whoa and show. And I said, dude, you need to control that. That's not from God. And he said, God's going to get you one day. God's going to get you one day. So we had these encounter nights, and I was like, I ain't going to go, dude. I'm associate pastor of a church. I know my Bible. I don't need to come to these encounter nights. Yeah. So I went to one, and I started roaring like a lion.
No way.
I just got so filled with the Spirit. I started roaring like a lion. Didn't know what was happening, but a big transformation had taken place. And somebody prophesied over us there was going to be a move.
Wow.
And we thought it was going to be a move towards Claire's parents or something else, but they went, it's going to be a move. On February the 12th, 2012, we were listening to Eric Johnson, and his preached absolutely rocked us.
Wow.
A month later to the day, it was March the 11th, 2012. I have no idea why, but I started to look at property in Reading.
That's wild.
The next day is Claire's birthday. I said, babe, we had a small Christian school that we'd set up as well. I said, I'll take your Bible class. Let me take it. So anyway, I'm sat down, and the Lord says, Abraham and the promise, Genesis 12. I was like, okay. I get to school. I open it. It says, Abraham and the promise, Genesis 12. Have you thought of moving? Have you told your kids? I go back to Claire, and I say, babe, I think we're moving to Reading. And usually Claire would be like, you're out of your mind. She went, okay.
No way.
So in 2012 in May, we came over, got accepted straight into BSSM, and we came in that August. And if I'm being completely honest, coming to ministry school in a small mountain town when you know God has called you to Hollywood. Because people
Yeah.
are like, do you think your acting career is going to take off when you go to Reading? I'm like, it's a town of 100,000 people.
Yeah.
I'm going somewhere to convalesce, somewhere to get a bit of respite and experience the Lord.
Yep.
And the first day we get here, who do I meet at BCS digging holes? I see this small Cuban guy. And I say,
David
so what do
Noronha.
you do? David Noronha. The first guy I meet here was an actor.
No way.
First guy I meet is an actor. God is so funny because we both came here to lay it down. We didn't come here thinking we'd ever act again. We came here to get healing.
Yeah.
And then we met Teresa Dedman, and I guess the rest is history.
Man, that's crazy. It's so wild. Like, this is always the problem that I think when people are trying to figure out what they're called to do, right? Like, how do you get from your heart's desire to the fulfillment of that?
Mm-hmm.
And it's never a straight line.
Mm-mm.
It's never even close to that straight line.
No.
And this is a question that I'd answer all the time in the school ministry, right? Because you have students that are laying down stuff and coming from all over.
Yeah.
They're everywhere from 20 years old to 80 years old. And the thing that they always want to know is, how do I step into my purpose? Like, how do I get activated and actuated into what God's called me to be? And watching my dad and Bill and Danny, watching these guys go from like a passion in their heart to the wilderness,
Mm-hmm.
to then like come out to somewhat of a promised land.
Mm-hmm.
Not fully, but somewhat of a promised land.
Oh, 100%.
To me, it's like, it's kind of like the military. Like you volunteer one time, and the rest of the time you show up
Mm-hmm.
and you be faithful
Mm-hmm.
and you do what you're told
Mm-hmm.
and you put your full skin in the game. And like, that to me, like, that's so much of the life with God
Mm-hmm.
is like, he puts this dream in your heart, right? This thing that moves you forward, this passion that like it wasn't something that you came up with. Like, I don't think that you came up with, you're watching Tom Hanks in Big and you just go, it's my desire to be an actor. Like, I think God put that in you.
Yeah.
It's that creative seed that he gave to your dad, that he gave to your grandpa. You were born in a family of creatives.
Right.
And that's something that was God's gift to you. It moves man forward. Like, God's gift to us is he puts something in us that makes us go forward,
Right.
that keeps us on track. But then the pathway to actually get in and step into that and its fullness is so wild
Yeah.
that you have to have, like, it drives you back to God to be able to even get back to that place of following the what's in your heart.
Mhm.
Like and I've seen that myself. It's like, I try to like physically, or I try to figure it out in my mind. And then it's like, I got to get back to just being faithful, serving, do
Right.
what God's asked me to do. Because there's no other, like, there's just so hard to put together.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think people understand sacrifice. I think what we do is, I know you've talked about it on some of your episodes, but
That's real.
people don't know how to engage and enter into a relationship with pain,
Yeah, it's real.
right? We try and medicate, we try and numb all these things, but it's like pain. Because what they see now is go, oh, so you run a conservatory of the arts, you've come to Bethel, you weren't known, and now you've made something happen here. I'm like, what people misunderstand is that first year was one of the hardest years of my life. I remember putting on a big show that I don't think even our environment's seen to this day. We had the entire Civic full. It was called I3. And I remember Pastor Bill being on the front row, and I used to swipe in and not go to class because I felt like God had called us to acting.
Wow.
So I would be doing these things for Teresa. Then I get called into Ben Armstrong's office, and he tears me a new one. And I said, he says, your character's not right. Because Leslie Crandall
Yeah.
said, I'm seeing Fab swiping and not going to class.
Bro, she's on point.
She's amazing.
She is.
So I'm sitting in Bon Armstrong's office and he says, he didn't say you got no integrity, but I said, I don't like what you're doing. I said, so you're trying to tell me that 90% of my character is all right and you're worried about the 2%? And he said, that 2% tripped me up. And he says, I'm doing this because I want that 2%. And I hated it at the time, but I thank him for it now.
Yeah.
I thank him for it because you allow compromise.
It's true.
Like if you give compromise a finger, it will take your arm.
It's true.
And what he was saying as a good pastor and as a good leader, Fab, you might have 98% right. I don't think I did. But I was still so arrogant, even after the first year of BSSM. I remember sitting in Gabe's office and Gabe says, so what are you doing now? I heard you're just not going to do second year and going to intern for Teresa. What are you doing? He said to me, you can't even do that. And he said, I don't even know who you are. I said, listen, ask the people who I lead what they think of me as a leader. And then have a look. And Gabe goes, I don't know whether that's arrogance or confidence. And dude, I'm a newbie in this environment, right?
Yeah.
Saying it to Gabe, the head of second year. And I'm like looking back now with embarrassment, right? Because it's a little bit embarrassing.
Yeah.
There was still so much that God had to do, dude. And like, I'm so thankful for this environment because it loves you too much to continue in your dysfunction if you will allow it and submit to leadership.
Yeah.
So then I did second year, had one of the best years of my life. Jake Veach was my revival group pastor, changed my life. And then I go to the Civic for a couple of years as theatrical director, but people don't know that I had no income for 4 years.
Wow.
So all of my investments in the UK, we had to liquidate to be here. And then I remember, sitting in your dad's office, pitching the idea of BCA. And we thought it was going to be a 5-year thing. But in classic KV mode, he was like, oh no, I want to see that happen now. So that was December of 2015, and he wanted us to start in the September of 2016. And, we'd been gaining trust in the environment. David at Bethel Media, me at the Civic. We'd been proving that we could serve. We were proving that we were excellent at our craft, right?
Yeah.
Because there's so many people that come here that want to be superstars.
Yeah,
that's
true.
just not what we wanted to do.
Yeah.
We just wanted to come and serve. So we start BCA. I asked Chris if we could wait another year because I was like, who's going to come, even though we're a global movement, who's going to come and want to train as part of a church? So I said, we need to go for accreditation. Mm-hmm. So usually takes 5 years. We did it in 18 months.
Wow. And
we started in 2017. And this journey for me has been a tremendous journey, seeing who we're sending out into the industry now. But dude, I'm still in dysfunction in 2017.
Explain that.
I just didn't treat people well, dude. I just had a value for the vision, but I didn't have a value for the people building the vision with us. And I'm making messes everywhere. People are burnt out. But I'm like, it doesn't matter. You're following the vision.
Right. As long as the end justifies the means.
As long as the end justifies the means. And I remember this is one of my most pivotal points. It was 2022. That year, David and I had the biggest blow-ups. We were just not getting along. We were in business together. We were in BCA together, butting heads like crazy. I could have killed him. We went to see Margaret Najib. We were with Kirk Wayman for a year. So we were getting healthier, but my entire staff left.
Wow.
My entire drama department left. I was the absent leader. I was making messes, not treating people well, having people crying in my office. And then I go on vacation, June the 4th last year. And I'm just sat down in this resort, and out of nowhere, the Lord hits me across the chest with a baseball bat. And he says, you're an addict.
Wow.
I said, what am I addicted to? He says, you're addicted to busyness. And you medicate with cigars, social media, and alcohol. You treat your wife like crap and you treat her like an employee. And he says, you preach a message you do not live.
Holy smokes.
So I'm floored. So I completely go sober. Not had any alcohol for 14 months, just don't drink anymore. And I went back, repented to my wife. The Lord said, there are 10 people you need to repent to. Repented to all those people. And David and I have never been better. I've had no staff leave. I've gone from being absent leader to being best boss. That's not me saying that. And my marriage has never been better.
Wow.
And God's goodness, dude. God's goodness to be able to stop me in my tracks because I was hurting so many people. Even in this environment.
Yeah.
Where you think you're going to be healthy to be in leadership. I was a tornado of catastrophe. And I just hurt people and hurt people and hurt people. And when I had that encounter, I said, I'm never going to do that again.
Wow. That's incredible, man. It's like you don't know what you don't know. So there's that side of it. Of growing up, you learn a certain style of leadership and you learn a certain culture. And it takes a long time to have your eyes really opened up to what's happening and what you're doing. And thank God for those type of encounters, right?
Well, yeah, because the thing is, knowing that I'd been in survival mode for the majority of my life, but not even listening to my wife, not listening to David, not listening to my team.
Wow.
I just wouldn't listen. I always felt attacked when they were talking to me. So I could never respond well. They loved me because I was fun to be with, but I wouldn't follow protocol. I'd always be the rebel because I didn't want to be put in a box. And I realized I'm hurting people.
Wow. That's wild. Why do you think that, like, where do you think that came from?
It's a great question. I mean, my parents are amazing people, but their marriage has been like separated back on. So I think for me, it was, I didn't know how to not, I think that work ethic became busyness, which became an addiction. I was validated by everybody seeing me on my phone. Yeah. I know you're super busy. I want to get a meeting with you. That I felt like that's what success looked like. Yeah. When actually busyness is the antithesis of success. Success for me is like, am I living in a rest, which is not the absence of activity, but a posture of the heart?
Yeah.
Am I loving my wife well? Am I loving my staff well? Am I loving my students well? Am I loving my kids well?
Can I say this? I think that so many men want that, but they don't know how to get there. And so a lot of times, the only thing that we really feel successful at is the busyness of everyday life, the work, the job, the investments. And so man, I feel so powerful when I'm focused and busy and pressing in, but I feel so powerless when I come home, managing my kids, managing my wife's emotions and her heart. Not that it's my job to manage them, but I'm supposed to manage mine around her. And I think so many guys don't feel successful there. And so the only other alternative is to do what we've seen all the other powerful guys do, which is, man, try to climb this ladder, try to find some sort of significance. And that's a real pit for so many different men is how do I get to a place in my life where I build status, where I build rapport, where I build importance, where I feel like my life has value. And then on top of that, like, who wants to do stuff that you don't feel good at, that you don't feel successful at? And so there's this massive mind shift when I think the other thing too, I know I didn't finish that thought, but that just came to my head is if you feel really powerless in the other areas of your life, the busyness is the medication for that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because as soon as you stop and slow down, as soon as you get on vacation, all you realize is how powerless you feel in these areas, how unsatisfied your marriage feels, how insignificant you feel in all these other places in your life. It's hard. It's really hard to stop, to slow down. And I see it a lot with men. I see it when we go to the retreats that we do, see it all over the place. When men start to slow down and stop and take a look around, it's painful because it's exposing. And I don't know what to do with that.
I think you have to look at, I actually think God ordained you to be successful, whatever that looks like, because it makes him look good, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Success is great. And I'm not defining success right now. But what I'm saying is, my question would be, whose empire are you building? If the Old Testament is based on two concepts, empire and shalom, not that shalom is not an aggressive word, it's an active choice of peace, right? Whose empire are you building? I thought I was building God's empire, but I was building my own.
Can we talk about the mind shift that's happened in you since that time? Because it's not like you're not working hard, and it's not like you're not pursuing, and being a leader has a posture of assertiveness in it 100%. Like, what's been the big shift in your life that you've had to walk out since this time?
I focused on people.
Okay.
Made people my priority. Because if you're going to build something, you have to build it in a healthy community. And if you don't, it's like, it's just, you can't do it. And there were certain things that I would do, trying to take the burden of an organization on your shoulders. And I was like, I can't do that. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to work hard, but I'm not going to take a false responsibility for something that isn't mine to carry. I mean, his burden is easy and his yoke is light. He either is or he isn't.
Yeah.
Right. And I was like, first and focus, what am I going to do? I'm going to focus on my wife. I'm going to make amends right with any of the messes I've made with my kids. And I'm just going to do connection codes changed my life.
Yeah.
The way I started to communicate, I followed it. I realized a lot of people are busy because they're in chaos and survival mode. But when you pare things down and go, I actually need to put really clear, and we talk about boundaries, but a really clear rhythms, I like to call them, in our lives, like working out, like not drinking, like praying, reading my Bible, all these rhythms that people feel stuck in. I'm like, if I don't do these every day, right? Then I'm going to be in chaos. So I do them so that I can live a healthy lifestyle, right? There's a guy called Brian Johnson, not our Brian Johnson, but he owned Venmo, and he sold something called, he sold Venmo, and he's done something now called the Blueprint. And in his healthy diet, he's got perfect biomarkers.
Oh, I listened to this.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah.
A little bit kind of interesting, but he said, I fired my brain.
Yeah.
So I don't give myself the option not to get up at 4:30. I do it. Why? Because I know how I feel by 6:30 when I've done my 3.5 mile walk, when I've worked out, when I've done my breathing, when I've done my meditating, when I've done my Bible reading. I'm like, you do more things in that 2 hours than most people freaking do in a day.
It's real.
You know what I mean? And like, you have those rhythms. It's like, I think putting those in place for me is like putting the foundation of a house. If you don't have a foundation of a house, it's going to collapse.
Can I say something? I think unless you make the amends, right?
Yeah.
Unless you draw a line and go, wait, hold on. I need a mirror. I need to look in the mirror a little bit, take inventory, go make amends, go clean up my mess.
Yep.
It's really hard to do that repentance walk where you start to walk it out every day.
Yep.
And I see that happen a lot, right? I see guys try to do it through motivation and momentum. Like, okay, I'm just going to start talking nicer to people. I'm going to try to wake up earlier. I'm going to start to try and eat healthier. But that's not actually the starting point. That's the fruit of repentance.
Right. Yep.
The fruit of repentance is, I need to turn and walk the other way. But really calling yourself to full repentance. That's what I love about the journey that you went on, is like, it's like God held a mirror up to you and said, hey, let me actually show you what you look like.
Yeah.
Okay, this is going to hurt a little bit, but I love you. And he shows you what you look like. And then you take it upon yourself to go, I've got a mess to clean up. got a big old mess to clean up. Which I think if in one of my session with Lauren, we do a 6-week intensive, marriage intensive. And one of the lessons that we do is making amends, which is one of the steps in the 12-step as well. If guys have done 12-step program before, like Alcoholics Anonymous, that is making amends. And the importance of making amends is so crazy. Very few of us, and think about it in terms of your marriage, right? Before this moment, how many times in our marriage do I actually put myself in my wife's shoes and go, what would it be like to live with me?
Oh yeah.
And have I ever gone back and addressed those things that I wasn't good at when we were newly married, that I was selfish at, that I was afraid in, whatever, that I was, have I ever gone back and cleaned that up? So many people are trying to heal or trying to move forward, but they've never gone backwards and gone, can we just take a second and go, oh my gosh, that must have really hurt.
Yeah.
Because it's so hard. Like you really have a hard time going forward until you pause, until you do the repentance process.
Yeah.
And I don't know how else to stress this, but there's probably a lot of guys here that need to stop and make some sort of amends, need to sit down and go, what would it have been like to be an employee sitting in your office feeling like my boss is way too busy for me, doesn't care about, only cares about the bottom line. That's a gift. Like, that's a gift to be able to come to a point where you have to draw a line and go, man, I can't go further anymore.
You have to take stock of your life, man. You know, we let life happen to us, and it's a cliche rather than me deciding what happens. And I think that it started with my wife, having to go back to her and going, literally, I would say this, I've abused you for 23 years of marriage. Wow. I said, I'm so sorry I've abused you for 20. I've never given you a voice. This year, she's had the biggest voice she's ever had. She feels heard, seen, known. Everybody always loves her. But giving her a voice and seeing how she thrives and never shutting her down, never shut your wife down. Listen, what do you need? How can I help? To do that is, dude, it's changed everything.
Gosh, dude.
Dude, it's changed everything, bro.
And the thing is like living this way is so much more productive and so much more fulfilling than doing all of the other stuff that we tell ourselves, this is really helping me. This is what I have to do. This is how I have to grind. This is how things have to be. It's like, man, stopping and adding some tools to your tool belt, making amends, getting some guys around you who are going on the same path.
And that's the thing, the group that we're in, like, I'm so thankful.
Yeah.
I'm seeing everybody now.
You can talk a little bit about it because guys won't know.
So we have a group, BraveCo group with Jason, and we're all part of a group, Ahab, Trey, Barrett, you know, Chris Lamb. We're all part of a group that we just call each other higher. We're all people that love the Lord. We want to do the best with the tools he's given us. It doesn't mean we don't want to be successful. We're not all looking to be, you know, the next 100 millionaire. But what I'm saying is we all want to be successful in every area of our life. Fitness, family, faith, fun. You know, we just want to be the best we can be, because I think you get to our age, even though I'm older than you, but where you're like, I've done that before. It's not fulfilling.
Yeah.
But this now, even though it might not be necessarily always converting to cash, is fulfilling.
Well, the thing is like, I was talking with Lamb yesterday and spending time with him. When I was young, I have a vivid memory, which I don't have a lot of memories of my youth. I remember being like 12, 13 years old, and my dad sitting down, and he said, if you have 3 close friends when you're my age, son, which he was probably 38, if you have 3 close friends, you're blessed. That's a lot. And I remember telling him, like, Dad, I got like 8 friends, you know, I'm 12. I got like 8 friends. And he said, no, that's good, son. when you get to my age, if you have 3 close friends, and the thing is when you when you do life with men, the cost is your time and your energy.
Yep.
Right? It's rarely convenient. If we're just looking at like it, and it's true. Like half the time I'm like, oh man, I'd much rather just lay in bed with my wife, watch a show, hang out, do whatever. But the flip side of that is the strength and the momentum that you build in your life. You can't build it any other way. You can't build it through a life coach. You can't build it through a marriage. There's just certain things that happen that you can only get from other men.
Yep.
And that women can only get from other women. And I've watched this last 3 years of my life, starting BraveCo and really being intentional, not just having some guy friends. Cause a lot of guys like, I got a guy friend. Nah, that's not what we're doing. Intentionally showing up to grow, to be seen, to be known, to champion each other forward. It's awesome because now I have instant access to Lamb's mind. I have instant access to your mind. I have instant access to Ahab. And I've watched in my own personal life. So finances has been a challenging area in my life because I've been a pastor and living on a pastor's salary.
Yeah, I feel
which
you.
Guys, listen, there might
I feel you, bro.
There might be some pastors that are pulling from the plate. It's not us. And it can be a tough world to live in.
Yep.
And so I've invested and stewarded the emotional health and the spiritual health and the mental health. Like I'm a millionaire over here.
Yeah.
And over on this side, I haven't focused at all on the investing and finances and all that. But I have guys who have spent so much time, and that's their gift, right? And I've just watched what that's done in my own life in this last year of having friends that are great over here.
Yeah.
And I'm good over here, and blending those worlds together. It's incredible. It's awesome. And not just financially, it's awesome. Like literally have guys, I was on my way to, in May, I was on my way to Taiwan and getting ready to speak. I did 15 sessions in 3 days in Taiwan.
Goodness. Good Lord.
80-minute sessions translated. Like for a speaker, that's like, it's crazy. It was a lot. While I'm getting ready to leave, like a couple of days before I leave, my wife gets sick, And so I'm like, gosh, dang, man, I'm getting ready to go. Lauren's sick and I have $1,000 left in my bank account for reals. And so I get on the road, I'm driving to San Francisco and I call Chris Lamb and I just say, hey bro, can I just let you know where I'm at? I just need somebody to know where I'm at. And then I text Chris and Ted. I put them in the group text when I was in Taiwan. And I just said, hey bro, it's day 2. I've spoken 6 times. I'm on a different time zone. My wife's sick. The kids are nuts, whatever, like normal stuff. And I just want you guys to know, like, I didn't want him to fix it. I didn't mean to fix it. It wasn't like send me money. It wasn't like come up with a business plan. It was like I just need someone in the trenches with me. And I've watched like living life like that has radically transformed my life and yours. It's the only way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. And having those guys around you to be able to, because you said it's borrowing people's minds. Like you've got Ted, you've got Lamb, you've got Ahad. Genius is what they do. Yeah. And our extended group all have key things of what way they can bring and hopefully what we can bring as well. But it's like, I wouldn't want to go back.
Yeah.
I would never ever want to go rest on a default. I'm thankful for where the Lord is taking us right now, dude.
So last question for you.
Yeah.
Are you still pursuing acting?
It's a question I have with the Lord, right? I'm like, yes, but my schedule won't allow it. So I'm doing a movie in the fall. So I have that coming up. And then.
What kind of movie?
It's like a psychological thriller.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I'm doing that in the fall. And I think I would like to, I would love to be in.
What?
I would love to be in The Chosen.
Oh, dude, that would be awesome.
Because I'm Italian. Yeah. I could play a Jew. There's so many things. You know what I mean? I could my
could.
Mediterranean. I could. So I don't know. There are things like that I would love to do, and I'd love to continue making movies like 'cause I co-produced Unplanned, and movies like that actually sound of freedom, that are making waves, that are changing culture and changing people's perceptions of things. But yes, to answer your question in a roundabout way, I would like to do more acting.
That's awesome, man. I love it. Bro, you're just one of the best guys I know.
Oh,
and I'm so proud of you, bro.
You,
having that encounter in 2022 and just shifting, changing everything takes so much work. So I'm just, gosh, man, I really do. I really admire men who are able to step up and really look at themselves and make the changes that they have to make. Would you pray for all of us, Father?
Oh, I would love to. Father, I just pray to everybody listening right now. I pray that, Lord Jesus, we don't have to be defined by how busy we are. But Lord, we're defined by who you say we are, Lord. And I pray if there's anybody struggling with elements of what I've struggled with, Lord, I pray you would give them that deep revelation right now, that it's okay to take time and rest, to actually be in a place where you're afraid of being bored, but in that boredom, it gives God time to speak to you. That, Lord, you would speak to us and start to bring this generation of men to a point, Lord, where we are lovers of you first and foremost, lovers of our family, lovers of our wives. Lord, that we're not influenced by the noise of what we think is success, but by what you say is success. So I just pray an anointing on everybody listening now in the name of Jesus. And I say, release you from busyness, and I release you into an encounter with the Lord in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Fab, thanks so much for coming on, man.
Thank you, bro. It's been a pleasure.
BraveCo men, this week, listen, maybe go sit down with God and take a look. Lord, what do you want to say to me? What are you doing in my life? Maybe ask him to gently reveal to you something about your life, maybe something about your character, maybe a blessing like what he did with Fab. But guys, go out there and get after it. We will see you next week on the BraveCo podcast. Hey, BraveCo men, hopefully you loved this week's episode. Listen, if you have not subscribed to our podcast, you are already behind. Go ahead and click right here to subscribe to our podcast. And if you have not watched last week's episode, you can click right here and watch last week's episode. And listen, if you want to upgrade your wardrobe, you can check out some of our new hats that we have in stock and all our other swag. Go to braveco.org and you can look at our store there. Have a great week. We'll see you next week.